Okay, so if you remember these 3 rules then, using a good quality yeast, make sure you measure accurately, and finally keeping your dough warm for the time that it needs to rise, then you'll be able to produce some excellent breads for yourself and your family and your friends. While you can make any size and shape loaf that you like, for your first loaf I recommend that you just make a small freestanding Vienna. This will give you a feel for the dough and also help you to work out what size tin or pan that you might want to use in the future. So the ingredients that you'll need to make your first loaf are your Tru-Dough cottage mix, some yeast, some oil, some white vinegar and some rice flour. Okay, we begin by placing the warm water into a bowl. Now I recommend that we use a plastic bowl because using glass or metal tends to draw the heat out of the dough and it slows the rising down. We want to use 245 mils of water. So a third of the 245 is going to be boiling. And we top that up to the 245 mils with our cold tap water. Now this will provide us the perfect temperature for our yeast, which we simply sprinkle around on the surface of the water. We then put in our oil. Now we use white vinegar because we have no preservatives in the mix and that helps to prevent mould. If you leave the yeast there for a couple of minutes, it'll just dissolve by itself. And now we add our 200 grams of our cottage mix. We now mix the dough together with a heavy duty spoon. Now you'll notice that a dough, a true flexible dough, will start to resist you. And that's what a good dough should do. Now at this stage you may find it a little easier to finish mixing on your board. So if we can just get rid of all of our dry ingredients while it's in the bowl, then we use a little bit of flour, rice flour. Any gluten-free flour should do, but rice flour is easy to clean up. Using our spatula, we remove the dough from the spoon. Pull it together in the bowl and tip it out onto our floured work surface. Now if you put a little bit of flour on your hands, then you can actually touch the dough and it won't be real sticky at this stage. But we roll it over a couple of times in the flour and it should be quite manageable. Now we just do a small knead for a couple of minutes and that'll make the dough smooth and flexible. So a simple knead is pulling an end into the centre, rolling forward with your fingers, turning it a little, tipping it into the centre, rolling forward. Don't over flour your board, just flour it enough so it doesn't stick to the surface. Rolling the dough on itself will give it a really good mix. And the rule of thumb is, the better it's mixed, the finer your texture will be and the lighter your dough will be. Once your dough is smooth, you can simply tuck the folds underneath, and if you rose your dough like that and baked it, then you would have a little bloomer loaf. But if we want to do our Vienna, then we simply start to roll gently in the centre out towards the two ends. And this will create a little boat shape that gives us our Vienna. So once we've made our dough shape, take our flat base tray, lightly oil the surface, lift our dough, place it on the tray, cover it with a lightly dampened cloth, and that's ready to go into a warm spot to rise. Now remember, we've preheated our oven, but only for 3 minutes. Any longer and it'll be too hot for the dough to rise in. So there should be a lovely ambient warmth in there that we can just place our dough in. After 50 or 60 minutes in that warm spot, your dough should have close to tripled in size. We now preheat the oven, 215 degrees Celsius. We now use a very sharp blade and make some slashes across the top of the dough diagonally, about 1/2 centimetre deep. And this will enable the dough to expand in those slash lines and hold a good shape during baking. When baked, remove your breads onto a cooling rack and allow them to cool. The small loaves need 1 to 2 hours cooling. Large loaves need about 2 hours to cool fully before you cut into them, otherwise the knives will get quite sticky when you're trying to cut the breads. Well, enjoy your bread making, but if you don't wish to make your own, come and visit us in Bendigo at New Freedom Bakery, and for further information visit us at our website newfreedombakery.com.au.